All right, let's see how well this is working. Okay. All right, everybody, welcome back. I know I was saying earlier I was going to take a little break, so I got done with the break and I'm back at it again. So the only difference that I've done since the last time I was streaming was I changed um, the bore camera's position from being a top-down view to a side view. If you look in the top left corner of the video, you're going to be able to see that you can now see this silver thing. That's the bore camera, which is providing the image that is at the top right of the screen. So the reason I've done this is because I just got done with the girdle and I kind of wanted to show y'all what it looked like, but also because the next portion of this is to basically redo everything that we just did, but with the polishing side, so getting rid of the scratches that are present on that actual material. So if you look on the current that camera, you can see that there's like all those minute little white scratches that are present. And so what the polishing process does is it gets rid of those white scratches and makes it so that the material becomes completely clear again. When it's completely clear, then you can actually be able to see through it even better, and it allows light to reflect and refract much better within the stone itself. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reset this up so that way I can polish this out. And then I'm also going to use a newer lap that I just picked up recently that will allow it to be very, very, very highly polished to the point of almost being a brilliant polish. I gotta still burnish that lap, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But in the meantime, what I'm gonna do is start off with a polishing lap. I'm just gonna figure out which one I want to use. Okay. It's a new 8K. Off screen, I have a bunch of little laps that I'm using to be able to polish the material. Each one is a different color and it allows for a different level of polish. So in this case, this is an 8,000 lap, 8,000 grit lap on the polishing side. This is called a lightning lap. It's made by the D-Light group. Uh, they're about $50 each, and there's a bunch of different polishing uh, grits that you can use. I'm going to be going with probably we're going to need this one later, but I'm going to start off, I believe, with probably like a 3000 and then work my way. Actually, I might even just do a 600. No, let's do 1200. No, 600, that's right. I guess 600 will work. So the 600 is a red colored lap, and basically it is a 600 grit um, material that polishes. It's a light polish, so it's not like super high glaze. It's just there to get rid of scratches like you're seeing currently on this stone here. So what I'm going to do is put it in and we'll start polishing away. Now, one of the first things I'm going to have to do is because this is a little bit thicker of a lap than what I have on here, is I'm going to have to re-dial in everything. So right now I'm at 53 on those, like on my dial indicator. The number is generic depending on where you're at in the cutting process, but that tells you the depth overall around. And it's more just representative of if you're at the same depth in each specific cut than if it actually meaning anything. So I'm going to take off this cutting topper. Pull this out real quickly. And as you can see, the cutting topper is just a topper that goes on this flat base. The flat base allows it to be flat. That way you don't have any oblong kind of like peaks or valleys on the disc as it's spinning around just by pressing on one specific side, because you can have a minute amount of flex that will cause the cut to not be perfectly even. So with this cutting lap, you can see it's pretty thin in comparison to the polishing, which is a bit thicker in comparison. So when I put this on and get this set down, put away my cutting lap for the time being. I'll have to clean all those off too after I'm done cutting these for the day. But now, if I drop my stone on, I went from a 53 to a 30. So there's a big difference in how the thickness can affect your materials. Now I'm trying to be able to keep the initial cut depth as consistent as possible. So I'm actually going to rise up the head here that you might be able to see on the left, or on the right side of the screen, main screen, to match as close as possible to that original 53 that I've been cutting to as possible. This is just to keep things consistent and make it so that it provides as clean of a polishing surface as possible to make things shine as brilliantly as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to start adjusting this. So in this case, raising it up. I try and get it to about 50. Okay, right now I'm at 53, but I'll use a fine tuner. Okay, we're bottomed out there, so here we go. So now I'm at about 50. Yeah, there we go. So now, when I cut on this with the style, I'm going to go down to that 53, which will stop, and then I'll be good, and I'll know that I'm more or less at the same depth as I was when I was cutting. And then again, that's just to compensate in the difference of thickness between this polishing lap and the topper cutting lap that you saw earlier. So before, I think I might have enough water to do this, but I might have to come back and get some more water. Also going to put in this alligator clip here is to keep the water from spraying all over, because when you're cutting, I have this hole right here in the machine that you can kind of see on the left monitor, and that allows you to get down to the 90 degrees since the lip of the thing is higher than the materials, but at the same time it makes it so that water gets all over the place. So I just generally take a shop towel, shop paper towel, like a blue rag. You can get over at any type of car repair shop or whatnot, like your O'Reilly's or whatnot, and I just fold it up and put it there so that way the water that's spinning off the top of the lap will catch on that, and it'll drip down into the bed pan below, and it'll keep me dry without getting a ton of water all over my clothes and everywhere else on the machine. So I'm going to start this up now, get the water to a good spot, there we go, and just apply a light amount of tension to get the water to go all the way to the edges where it's at now. So now I should be good. I think I have everything I need to start. So I'm just going to start off again on 0 or 96, which is this side right here, opposite away from the camera. I'm going to have to rotate it to the camera because I can't get the camera to face over here from the side I need to, otherwise it's going to be in the way of my material, so bear with me. So you can kind of hear it already going. It's got kind of a skipping sound that it makes as it goes across. Okay. And at this point now, the water on the surface actually will make a little bit of a difference, because you can't tell how polished something looks because of the water on the physical stone itself. So what I just generally do is grab some of the shop towel, wipe it off, and then use that to see how well I've polished this material. So to show you just how quickly this process works, if you see there, you'll see on the right side, that's the side I just faceted, and you have on this side right here, that side has been polished, whereas that side right there has not. You can see the line where the material stopped getting polished on. So I just need to get it to go all the way across so that whole facet has been polished. And then once I do that, I'm on to the next side. So this is going to be much quicker than the last section where I was actually cutting. But I just need to continue to provide enough water to make sure that it's going to hydrate it enough and not cause the stone to heat up and material to slough onto it and scratch it up. So at this point, just going a little bit more. Now, on the prior cutting side, that topper is cutting at a much smoother rate than this polisher or polishing side. So like on my dial indicator, the dial's just going like this all over the place, whereas on the other one it was like this. So a lot of this is more by visual inspection rather than actual just following the numbers, so to speak. So at this point, that's looking fairly good, and I'll show you what it looks like now. So that is not the polished side, that's the side that's just wet. As you can see, it got pretty cloudy right there as the water evaporated away. But if we turn this to look, you can see now how clear. You can actually see the reflection in the board cam lights that are there as well. So I just need that little section there on the corner that's white where you can't see the lights in order for this whole facet side to be done. Now, again, this is just a 600 polish, and you can see how quickly it polishes with just a 600. There are multiple other polishing grits that you can do as well. So I'm going to be doing probably a 600, and then I'm just going to jump straight to a lightning lap that is specifically designed for quartz materials. Citrine is part of the quartz family, so it will allow me to get a brilliant polish on the material pretty much immediately, just with the minor pre-polish of this red 600 lap. So at this point, if I turn this so y'all can see, that is the wet side. So this is the side. Get all the water off. So you can see this side is not, or is the one that's been polished. So you can see the reflection of the lights. This side right here has not been polished because in the drier section you can't see any of the white light, it's just diffused, versus this side right here, which you can see the lights in the reflection. So in this case, I just gotta, I think it's pretty much done. I might give it just a smidge on that corner. I don't want to over polish because it'll over polish on, even though it's a pre-polish, it'll actually kind of cut the material as well, so you'll lose the alignment that I was working towards on the other materials. So I'm going to give it a little bit more. Okay, and I think I'm just going to call it good there and then go on to the next. So now we're on to 24. And again, just so y'all can see, 24 before looks like this right here, where it's just that white matte kind of look, and you can see there's a little bit of scratches on it as well, whereas after it's going to be a lot more clean and you can see through it. Okay, Let's get the water off of it. I also tend to blow on the stone a little bit because any of the water residue that would be in the cracks will tend to evaporate quickly or at least get blown away, and it allows it to be more visible. So now if we go to 24, you can see how it's a little bit more clean. You can actually see the reflection of the lights in it. So this one has been done. This one is getting worked on right now, but this one has not been done. So there is a slight amount of difference. It's way more visible in with other polish grits, but for now, again, we're just doing this to make sure that it's getting off any of the big scratches that would be present before we go on to the final polish. Alright, so now you can see there's the 24 again. You can really start to see through and into the stone versus the just rough cut right there and right there. So I'm actually going to just go from there on to the next, which is 48, and we'll start working on 48 next. Before I got somebody trying to contact me. 1 second. So, alright, go on to the next. Alright. Okay, applied or got off most of the water that was on there. I wanted to try and get rid of majority of the residue. So this is 48, the 48th index, and as you can see it's pretty clear. This corner might need a smidge more because it kind of disappears on the top light, but it's very close to being done. So I'm going to go back to 48 one more time, and then let's get a slight bit more polish on that, or pre-polish. Alright, so now let's turn it here. So now you can really see that it's pretty even with the reflection of those lights on the full face of the facet. So from there I'm going to go on to the last one right here, which is 72. And just to show you how quickly this is, I just barely put it on there so that way I can show how quick it will polish up. As you can see, it's starting to get clear and you're able to see the light almost immediately. So it doesn't take very long. Depending on the material, some things polish better than others. Quartz and the quartz family, like citrine and amethyst, tend to like certain pre-polishes more than others. A 600 works well, but 1200 and above, especially for amethyst, we'll have a lot of issues with, which is why I'm just going to be doing a base pre-polish and then going straight to a final polish. So there we go, pretty even across the board. And in comparison, like clear, can see through it and see the facets on the back versus a section that has not been polished where you cannot see through it. So there is quite a bit of a difference in the two, as just with a quick amount of polish. So what we're going to do is start off the next one. And before I do this, I'm actually going to stop real quickly and go get some more water, because the water that I have here is nearly out. And this section takes a lot of water. So, be right back. Okay, so now I'm back. Filled up my water reservoir pretty much all the way to the top, so it should last us quite a while. So now I am just wanting to check. Okay. Get this started up. Get some water on there. Alright. So actually, before I start this, what I'm going to do is we're going to now polish the other 4 sides that did not have polish on them. So I just need to figure out what those numbers are. So those are 12, 36, 60, and 84. So now I'm just going to get a good baseline here. A little higher than I want it, but it's okay. So now I got this matching the others. Sure I'm on the right one. Yep, I am. Okay. So quickly check. It seemed to work pretty quickly, but I'll show you. So again, raise this up just a smidge. So there is 12. You can kind of now see through it a little bit more. The light reflects on it a little better than before, where it was like this one right here, where you can't see through it hardly at all. This one you can actually see through and see the other facets in the back. So I'm going to give it a little bit more pre-polish here. Okay, and then wipe it off. Pull on it a little to get the water to evaporate, and so now you're left with this. So you can really see how the light is now starting to reflect off of it much better, and you're able to pretty clearly see through the stone, which is excellent. The corners are still matching up as well, which is what you want to see, because these corners can get worn away pretty quickly when you're using a pre-polish, because it can be sometimes pretty tough on the material. So I'm going to go from there to the next one, which is going to be 36. Okay, so 36 is the next section on this opposite side from the camera. So give it a little bit of polish there, or pre-polish. Okay, there we go. You can kind of see through it a little bit already in comparison to before. Increase the water here. This is one of the steps that you want to make sure you have a lot of water on. because the polishing lap and polish on it can have a lot of that material get sloughed off if it gets too hot, which ruins your laps prematurely. And $50 to $80 a piece, depending on where you buy them, you really want to make sure you're taking good care of your laps, because otherwise you're going to have a bad day, or at least your pocketbook will. So now right here, you can see right there, you can actually see through it. Reflection, even a minor reflection right there. So yeah, it's looking much better. Now you can also see how quickly that's overcut too. So see how those corners are not quite matching up anymore with the original? This polishing lap can cut away quite a bit of material. Now I'll be able to align that better here in a moment, but I'm going to have to do that in a little bit. So we're at 6. Okay, we're going to go on to 60 next. There's 60. You can already see the reflection of the lights in it, which is nice. Which means it's almost done. There we go. That's looking much clearer now. As you can see, it's also just that brief amount of time I've already overcut just a smidge on those two. Like I said, I'll come back and correct that with repolishing the other flat sides, the wider sides right here and whatnot. But I'm going to have to do that in a moment. And then the last one should be 84. Yep. So last side right here. Okay. So this side is much smaller than the others, so it cuts much quicker. As you can see, it's already beginning to lose the matchup with the other two sides there. So I'll come back real quick before I go on any further and retouch those other sides up. So at this point, I want to go back to shut this off to my original flat faces here. I want to adjust these, readjust this so it's back to what it was before. There we go. And the size of the facet really has a big impact on how quickly it cuts. The larger the facet, the quicker that a higher grit or a lower grit material will cut it. So you have to be really careful and spend a lot of time focusing on it, especially in the polishing phase, because you can overcut very quickly, which will waste a lot of your time if you've spent a lot of time making sure things matched up. So here, 24, that facet right there is matched up. That facet right there isn't quite matched up. So I'm going to have to spend a little time finagling this so that way they both match each of the spots. So I'm going to want to work on this side right here that has more of a gap. And that side is going to be the side closest to me. So I'm going to cheat a little and use that trick like I was saying in the last video where if you have the arm in line with the center of this auger here, taking a look at the top left view right there, if it's in line with this, you're going to cut evenly on both sides of the facet. But if you have it more this way, you're going to cut more on the leading edge, and this way from the auger you're going to cut more on the tailing edge. So you can kind of use that to shape things that aren't quite matching up the way you need to. in order to get it running. And it sounds like cheating, but it kind of is, because if you don't absolutely perfectly match everything from one side to the next, the next, the next, the next, the next, like down to the thousandth of a millimeter, you're going to have a difference in how one side looks over the other side. So now that I adjusted that, you can see this side is still looking good, but now this one's almost matched up too, because I was forcing the material on the one side rather than the other. Okay, grab this. So there we go, we're still matched up a little bit, tiny bit over on that side, but now on this side, if you look, we're nearly matched up there as well. Okay, I think that's about as close as I'm going to get now on that side, so now I'm going to go on to the next facet. This facet is, it matches on the side closest to me, right here. There's a tiny bit of a step, but not very much. But on the opposite side, you can see there's a much bigger gap there where it steps down. So I'm going to be working on that one first, which means I want to push the stone further away from me. That will get the far side of the stone. Okay, there's still a slight gap, so I'm going to keep working on that. Still a slight gap. There's a slight gap on both sides now. It's about even, so I'm going to put it more in the center. We're still just about even. A bit more on that leading side. Actually need to add a little bit more water. This is just a smidge too dry. You can tell if it's too dry too when you put your fingers on it, because you'll feel like there'll be a section of the lap where your finger will get drug away with it as it goes around. And you want that to all be as smooth as possible, like as smooth as glass. That way you can be able to know that you're getting an even surface. We're fairly close on the side. I try to do this by eye as well, because if you can't see it by eye, then it matters, but that's where the biggest bulk of shoddy cutting is if you can see it by eye. You can definitely tell if it's shoddy if you put on magnifying glasses or whatnot, but you want to make sure that nothing is visible to the naked eye 100% of the time. You can sometimes get away with a little bit of unevenness at higher magnifications, because it requires higher magnifications to see. But if you can see it during the time or with just your naked eye, then it's not really a well done cut. Okay, now I can show you. So it's still a tiny bit of step you can see there, but there's still a tiny bit of a step there. Just gonna go a little bit more, and then we should be good to go. It's starting to get really clear too. Just from the naked eye, you can see through it, which is really nice. This is a yellow citrine, so it's got a nice yellowy color. I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. It's not like a lime color, um, but more of a just a light yellow, a clear light yellow. So from here, I think I'm pretty close to being done with this, but I just want a little bit more. I'm being very picky. Because the more I can get with these higher grits, or lower grits, the less time I have to spend on the higher grits, which are the more expensive types of laps and wear out more frequently. So if I get this looking good at the higher or the lower grits and at the higher grits, I'm spending less time overall. Okay, that looks fairly good. I'm going to jump on to the next one. This one looks fairly even actually. Let me show you. So that side's actually touching, and that side is touching as well. So I might actually leave this one alone and just go on to the last one. The last one is at 96, or the 0. And you can see there's a tiny step right there. And let's see if I can show it on the other side. That side looks good, so I'm just going to have to fudge it a little on the side that is a little higher. Push it further away from me. Sometimes too, depending on the stone, certain stones will cut quicker than others, depending on the way the grain of the stone, and I'm saying grain generally because I don't know what you would call that, the composition of the stone is set. Certain stones you actually have to cut them at a certain degrees, otherwise they will shear and break as you're cutting them. Tourmaline is one of those. I believe you have to cut it at there's a certain percentage. It's under 10%. I don't remember if it's 7 or 2, but you actually have to align it so instead of it being like this with the direction of the material, you have to slightly adjust it and cut it this way, because if you, as you're cutting on the side, if you cut with those the material's growth pattern, it will tend to actually crack and break. Whereas if you have it at a slight angle, it'll be better to cut and it won't cause it to break as much on you. But what that does mean is that on some sides, like if you were looking at my hands like this side would be easy to cut. However, if you spun it around, the other side that you're trying to cut, like this side, would actually be harder to cut on, because now you have all the tips and all the grain being on one side. So some sections of the stone will cut way quickly, and then other sections will cut very longly. So let's show this. Still a slight gap there, so we're going to go back and adjust. Okay, there we go. See how now that's no longer got a step in it? And this side still looks just as good on its matchup. There's still a slight step you can see. Might play with it just a little bit longer. Okay. So there we go. Now there's no step there hardly at all. We're still good on the opposite side. So now we got all of this pre-polish. You can actually kind of see through the stone now, which is nice. So what I'm going to do is go on to the next stage of the process, which is the final polish. Now, when I am cutting normally, you'll normally do a full, like, you'll either do all your cuts and after you cut it, then you come back and put on your polishing and polish it, or you come back after you're done doing every cut for the bottom side or the top side of the stone and polish them all up on a second pass. In this case, I'm just going to end up polishing the girdle where I do both cut and then polish, and then I will, for the other pavilion and crown sections, I'm just going to end up cutting them, all of the different designs, and then coming back and repolishing all the designs at the same time. The strategy there is you want to be able to make sure that you're not having excess movement within the between the cutting section and the polishing section, because if you slightly have something offset on the polishing versus the cutting, it's going to have more issues than if you do it at the same time. Now, if you're going to be competition cutting, you're probably going to cut and then polish immediately after. That way you know that whatever move you had, you remember the exact amount of movement that you did on it. So that way it's perfect. For most other cutting though, especially hobbyists where you're just starting to learn like myself, you can kind of get away with having a little bit of a difference there and just let the polishing section work out those imperfections and the difference between cutting and polishing depths. So in this case though, with the girdle at least, I will be doing the cutting and polishing all at once because I don't want to have to get back to the girdle ever again. I want to be done with it and then focus on everything else and worry about the girdle absolutely last, because girdle facets are the hardest when it comes to matching things up at the end if you do a cut first then a polish later, because you not only have to take into account all the facets going into the girdle, but you also have to take into account all the facets around the girdle, and then all the facets between the top section of the stone and the bottom section of the stone. So it's just always, in my opinion, better to do that all at once. So I'm now switching to my high polish. This is another lightning lap. I believe this is considered a 50,000. I could be incorrect, but it's a 50,000 grit polish versus this red one being a 600 grit polish. So there's a very big difference between the polishing of this and the polishing of this, and that's why this would be considered a pre-polish, whereas this is considered a final polish. So I have not ever used this lap. This is brand new, so it'll be fun to try it out for the first time. So I'm going to take this off. Okay, so put this to the side. And then because this is so new, I haven't even burnished it this lap, so I have to burnish it first. It looks to be about the same thickness. I'll still measure that when I put the stone on it. But with the burnishing process, what I'm going to be doing is taking a little bit of sandpaper. It's like a 800 grit sandpaper, I believe. Yeah, 800 grit. And I'm going to... No, I'm sorry, 600 grit. And I'm going to be lightly filing or sanding away the top section of this just over a couple passes. You don't want to do it for very long because you can take off a lot of the polishing materials, but you do want to be able to burnish it quickly. And as you can see, you might be able to see like the water is beating up on the material. Turn down the light. There you go. You can kind of see how it's beating up rather than just kind of laying into it. And that's why you'd want to burnish it slightly, just to allow it to have some material. I'm actually going to, yeah, okay. Just want to do like a pass or two. And now that lets the water settle into the material more than it was before, where it was just bubbling on top of it. Okay. So now that I got that, I'm going to check the, see how much different size. This is roughly the same thickness, it appears, based off of the dial measurements I'm taking. Then on the other one, I have to do a slight adjustment, but it won't be very much. So I'm going to try this out now and see how well it works. Oh, hold on. Forgot to put in my water bridge. Or water catch. There we go. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to start this off. This one sounds a lot different than the other ones. Oh, it's amazing how quickly it cleared it up though. So in comparison, so this is the 600 on the side that has not yet been polished, and this is the 50,000. So you can see where there's a slight bit of haloing around it, but very slight. So I'll apply a little bit more pressure to get rid of some of those streaks in the center, but the difference is astounding. Like you can actually see almost the black ring that's inside the center of that bore cam versus over here where you can't even see that there's a bore cam there. I'm only applying a little bit of pressure then stopping because this is the first time I've used this and I just want to make sure I'm doing things right. Okay, so before, after. It's very clean and clear. You can see completely through the stone at this point because, because of that. So I'm just going to keep applying slight pressure to get that to be where it needs to be next. Alright, there we go. So before, after. It's just getting cleaner and cleaner and easier to see and clearer, which is amazing. Check my stream, make sure everything's looking good. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Alright, so back to here, before, after. Now it's almost as clear as glass, or a reflection in glass. Still got a little bit of an edge there. I'm going to have to apply a little bit more pressure to just get it to clean up. There we go. So now what you're seeing right there in the reflection is you're actually seeing the streaks of water. You're not actually seeing any material left. And as you can see, just me doing that, I've actually put oils on that. That's how polished this is. Okay, and here we go. Before, after. Still a little water on there. 1 second. There we go, after. So now at this point, some of the stuff that's on there is just like lint from the actual shop towel that I'm using. That's how clear this is. You can even see that kind of swirl right there. That may be a inclusion within the material that's inside of the material. I can't tell at the moment, but I'll have to pull out my magnifiers to check. Okay. Again, before, after. That's looking much better. So I'm actually going to call it at this side. The reason being is I'm only looking for the top edges to match up at this point, not the bottom edges, because the bottom is going to be part of the crown part of the material, whereas the top is going to be part of the pavilion or the bottom part of the material, because right now the stone is oriented upside down. So when I'm done with it, it'll be actually this way. So why I want to only make sure that the top part looks good is to be able to ensure that I'll have a clear band from the top of what you're seeing or the bottom of the actual stone when it's done. And I only need a band that is half the width or even less than what it is currently. So like the width of these tweezers is probably all that I'm actually going to save here from the where you're seeing that top part is to the bottom part of that prong of the tweezer. That's all I'm going to save. So I don't need the bottom to be super polished and perfectly polished because it's just wasting material, wasting time. I just need that top part. So from here I'm going to go on to the next side, which is, did 48, so it's 12. Nope, so it's 0. Oh no, we did, what did we do? Oh yeah, 48, there we go. It's on the wrong number. So next is 72. Start it up, get it going. Some sides polish up a little quicker too, depending on how accurate they are, have been cut, or just the materials within the stone. So now This is the second side. You can see the top part there is a little cloudy still, so I'm going to get some more on it, but the center is already looking really good. And for this specific stone, I will be polishing all of the facets on the stone using this white lap that's right here. This is specifically designed as a polish for a quartz-like material to provide a nice brilliance to it. So I'll be doing this not only on these facets, but all the other ones on the stone. It's just going to take time to get to that point where I can show off. So this is looking good. There's still a little bit on that corner there that I'm going to get, but this side is looking really nice and sharp. Okay, so that was the first one. This is the second one. So that top section there, right at the corner, is still got a little bit of cloudiness that I'm going to try and get rid of. But we'll try and get rid of that first. Okay. Still a little bit there. Keep going. Not going to waste too much time if I can see it quickly on the camera. As it is, this video is probably going to be closer to an hour and 30. Okay. Voila, still a little bit there. So it needs a little bit more, and then I should be pretty close to being done. I'm not worried so much about anything above that line too, the top line of the facet to the right of it, because that is all going to be recut again on the next set of cuts, on this set of cuts called P4, because it's going to provide a nice like polish side to that, to each of the girdle cuts. Okay, super close now. As you can see, it's just a little bit there. So I'm just trying to be in line with the top of this facet right here. So anything above that I don't care about, and anything about as wide as my tweezers were I don't care about as well. Okay. Super close now. Super close. There we go. So that's nearly done. Probably one more pass and we're okay. Call it finalized. almost there. I don't want to go too much because, like I said, it's just wasted time. That's pretty good. There's a little bit of cracking there on the corner. I can't tell if that's cracking or if that's just water. No, that's definitely some cracking slash scratching, so I'm going to try and polish out that scratching now. It's starting to go away a little bit more. There we go. It's basically gone at this point. But you can see how much of a shine there now is on this. It's a little bit of like a swirl. Okay, I'm just gonna go on to the next one. So before, this is the one we're going to be polishing next. This is a before shot of it. As you can see, pretty hazy. Okay. This is an after, so this is already got quite a bit of polish. It's taken quite a bit of polish, which is nice. So let's keep going. Alright, there we go. You can see it's coming out pretty good. A little bit more. Okay, so it's interesting too, when you polish it more, it feels more like glass, like a mirror, like when you put your finger on a mirror, than it does before when it's got the more lower tier grits. There we go. It's getting quite good there now. I just need to hit this right side a little bit more before it'll polish that up. There we go. You can see it's now starting to hit the right side now. So we're going to keep going. Sorry, trying to get my phone out of my pocket. It's been buzzing. Okay, so now it's looking quite good. Just need to get it to the top part now. There we go. Still a little bit of slough in the middle, plus some scratches on the edge over here. Those were probably from the original. It's just much deeper than anticipated. Alright, it's getting much clearer now. Some of those scratches aren't going to matter a lot because again, I'm only looking for the top between this corner right here and that corner right there to be good, plus or minus the tweezer length, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue if there's still a little bit present. A lot clearer now. That's just a little bit of lint. It's going away. Yep. So there we go. Just clearing up. If you look, you can kind of see through the stone now too. Like if I put my finger behind it, you can see my finger behind the stone. So at this point, it's pretty clear to where you can actually see a lot into it. That's what this polishing process is all about, is getting it to be as clear as possible. This little rag is getting quite wet, so I'm going to have to grab another one pre-made down here. There we go, it's really getting clear now. So on the sides I have cut too and polished. Looking through it at the top is really a treat because it's starting to get a lot of refraction within the stone. So other colors that you're not expecting to be picked up, like the red of this alligator clip, or pinkish red of the alligator clip, is getting actually picked up and put into the stone itself, which is nice. Almost there. Just getting that corner there. There we go. Now it's really starting to come through, which is nice. There we go. As you can see, it's really starting to clean up. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but there's not very much else I can say. I'm not a huge, normally not a huge fan of yellow stones. I prefer the like really colorful ones, like a purple for amethyst or whatnot. But this is actually turning out to be very nice. There we go. Okay. Testing something. Probably not gonna work, but wanted to see if I could weight down the quill here. Super cool. You can actually see in the background where there's a second set of lights. That's the back side of the facet behind it. That's getting the reflection on it. Okay. This here. So close. Just need this little bit right here to go away. Almost there. And this is the point where you just have to basically sit and wait. Sometimes it polishes quickly, sometimes not so quickly.
She said, allow me to stay. Please don't be extra. I wanna hold
Just make
her.
sure.
I wanna kiss this too extra. She's made of faceless. She's
Just make
made of
sure.
faceless.
Ah, yes, the music is coming through. I can't be playing that there, so I need to figure out how to get it to be silent. We just want to do this. I think this will work. Yeah, I think that works. So let's go back to my view. There we go. So close. Oh my gosh, this one's taking forever. Okay, so it's almost gone now. I can just see a little bit there. Still a little bit there. So now we're almost there. Oh, still a little bit, but not nearly as much as there was before. Okay. So the reason I'm trying to get rid of all of this, even though there's hardly anything there, is because it can show up in the reflection of the material when you're done. So you'll look and you'll actually see the reflection of that non-polished section within the inside of the gem because it's reflecting off of the other surfaces of the gem. Getting super close, just not quite there yet. I still got to do this side too. I might just skip ahead to this next one. I think that's 24. Yeah, I'm just going to skip ahead to 24 and then I'll come back to that one later. The other one, it only needs a little bit longer, but I just need to see some more progress than it's only coming off a tiny bit at a time. Hmm. It appears as though this is just because it's too low. So what I might actually do real quick, drop that down a smidge. Might be able to help polish everything a lot quicker. Okay. See, now this one's polishing from the bottom up to the top. So I'm going to need to spend more time on this one as well. It's almost like something shifted, but see any indication that it has, so. Okay. Oh, there we go. It's helped a bit. So, this side is starting to polish a little bit differently than the others. For some reason it's coming from the bottom up. Yeah, the bottom of this one is looking real good. Just needs to be the top. Okay. Yep, it's moving just slowly. Slowly moving. It's getting there. Hmm. Just testing some things. So that might work. Just weighting down the head so I don't have to constantly be pushing down on it myself. This is just a little ball peen type hammer that I got. That applies just enough pressure so it doesn't end up over stressing the stone, but at the same time can actually let it get what it needs to get. There we go, that seems to be working. Well, this one's taking a lot longer than the last couple of videos, so I might actually cut it out here soon, just because it's gonna be a long video of not very much happening. So, in the meantime, though, if you guys have any questions, or y'all have any questions, feel free to comment on them, and I will try and answer them as quickly as possible, so that way it doesn't, I don't leave your answers um, hanging, so to speak. So, but I think for now I'm gonna probably end the stream here. Just continue to watch this, and by the time you come back and see the next time, I'll have the girdle facets all polished up, so we'll be good to go. So, but anyway, I think that's all for now, and best of luck, and I'll see you on the next stream.